Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are having a good afternoon, and I hope you guys are also ready for episode 8 of our Firebase 3 real-time chat application video lesson. So we're going to be writing some really cool features for our app today. So let's turn our attention to the simulator and talk about what exactly that is. All right, so we have our somewhat completed application on the screen right now, and I want to show you the functionality of clicking on this icon, selecting a user that I want to type a message to, for example, clicking there, and it's going to bring me to this chat log controller for Arya Stark. And then I want to be able to type some messages to her by saying something down here. I hope you still have your needle sword. I'm gonna hit send right there, and it's actually going to send a message into Firebase database. So I'm going to show you guys how to build out this entire chat log controller with these input components at the very bottom. And then at the very end, I'm going to show you guys how to actually send messages to your Firebase client. All right, so it sounds pretty good. Now I'm going to go ahead and shrink this up here, and now let's get started. So I am going to run my application right now. I'm just hit run. I think I will need to log into my app once I log out right there, and I need to just quickly log in as test40@gmail.com, and this is my Jon Snow account, as you can see with this Jon Snow and profile image up there. So last episode we were able to center these two views inside of the nav bar up there. We also talked about some bug fixes and JPEG compression. So if you kind of want to get caught up with those couple of features, make sure to click on the link down below for that video. Okay, anyhow, let's move on to how we want to actually create this controller here. So we are going to start out with creating a new file inside of this controller group, new file. And I like creating Swift files because let's see, chat log controller is the name of this file. And the reason why I create new files is because I don't like all the extra junk that comes in with my new file. So I just create it from a blank slate like this with a class, chat log controller, and then I'll just use a UI table view controller. Now I can just type in viewDid load, super viewDid load, and here we go. The class is super clean and super straightforward to follow now. Okay, with this class now created, how do I actually load it into the screen here? So seeing as I already have a top left button and a top right button performing two separate functionalities, I will go to messages controller, and inside of viewDid load, let's see, set up nav bar with user here. Then we set up the entire title view up in the center of the nav bar at the very end of this line. So I'm going to trigger something when I click on this title view here by specifying title view, add gesture recognizer, UI tap gesture like that with a target of self, and the selector will be a function called show chat controller. Okay, so I'm going to copy this guy right here and create this function right below function paste. And now we have, let's see, get these braces in. Now we have this controller going to actually show inside of this function. So to make it a little bit more obvious for some of you guys out there, I'm going to run that and print this 1, 2, 3 into the console right below whenever I tap this up here. So tap, we get the 1, 2, 3 up here. So as I was mentioning before, I want to show this chat controller whenever I tap on this area up here. And to do that, we specify a chat log controller equals chat log controller with this constructor here, and then we simply push it. See, navigation controller, push view controller. This will push chat log controller onto the screen with a sliding animation of true. So running this now, we will get the chat log to slide in from the right to the left. So click on there, we get the chat log. Clicking back, we get this functionality. Pretty sweet. We don't need segues from storyboards. All we need to do is execute this one-liner right there. All right. So now what do we want to do inside of chat log controller? Well, first I'll simply change the navigation item.title to just say chat log controller, just to make it obvious to you guys that this is actually being executed up above. So I'm going to click the title area, we get chat log controller. So good stuff. Now what I want to do is I want to actually send messages to my users in the system. So before I can do that, I need to build some input areas or input text field and this little send button inside of this input area right here. So why don't we do that by, by putting a view down here. So to make this super easy, I am going to include first somewhat of a container view down at the very bottom. So to do a container view, it's very simple. And I'm going to first create a function called, setup input, input areas or input components. Yeah, that sounds better. Input components, and I'll copy that, func paste, and now here we go. So let container view equals UI view, and we are going to set the background color to a UI color of red. Then we will actually use some constraints. So to do that, we set this translates masking to constraints to false. And now we need to say view add subview, this container view somewhere in the screen. So this right here, running this, does absolutely nothing but create our view. And it does not place it inside of our controller. So as you can see, we have nothing there. So to place it onto the screen somewhere, we will need some, iOS 9 constraint, constraint anchors right here, if I can type it out correctly. And then we need some, X, Y, width, and height constraints to place it onto the screen. In other words, I'll first place the container view to the left of the screen with this left anchor. So container view, left anchor, constrained to the views. So view, left anchor like that. Let me just clear out the project navigator. And then I need to pin it to the bottom with container view dot bottom anchor, constrained to the view's bottom anchor. So the view in this case is this entire view controller's view. And I'm going to use the width container of the window width anchor, constrained to the views width anchor. Width anchor. This will make this entire view right here span the entire width of the view controller's view, and container view dot height anchor will constrain to a constant of 50, giving it a height of 50 pixels. And finally, I need to specify active equals true for all of these constraints, otherwise they are inactive, obviously. So running this now, it is actually not going to give us what we want. And so here we go. I'm going to click here, we get our chat log controller, and instead of being pinned to the bottom, it's being pinned to the very top for some very odd reason. And I don't exactly know what is going on with this table view controller, but here is the actual fix. Okay, so we can do two things here. We can first change this to a UI view controller and run this application, and then we'll get the view pinned at the very bottom. So I'm going to show you that by doing that, and we get the view at the bottom right there, and the controller is default colored to black, so just ignore that for now. And if you guys actually know the reason why the view is putting up there, please feel free to leave a comment below and let me know why. So something else that we can do is to use a UI collection view controller instead. So this is going to make our lives a little bit easier. And I know you guys are accustomed to using table view controllers more, but I'm going to show you how this is pretty much exactly the same as a table view controller. Anyhow, I am going to try to run this by compiling, and it is going to succeed, but I'm going to show you the crash that occurs when we try to launch this controller. So click, and then we get this crash, and here it'll say something like, controller needs a non-nil layout parameter right there. So inside of messages controller, we will look at this instantiation for show chat controller. And here is what we need to do. We will need to actually specify a layout parameter like of this, so collection view layout. And then you can just simply specify UI collection view flow layout like so. And now we should be good to go with our controller. So let's see, there, and there is what we get. So the black screen right here is actually a collection view that we see. So if we set the background color to UI color of white instead, we'll see a white and then the red bar at the very bottom. Okay, so far so good. Now what we need to do is to put two components down here, the input text field and then the send button on the right. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add in the send button first by creating a send button down here. So let me get some spaces down below. Makes it easier for you guys to read what's going on. Let's send button. Let's see, UI send button. Nope, UI send button. That's not a component. UI button. And I'm going to use this empty constructor for now. And send button needs a title by set title of send like so for a control state of normal. Now we will set send button dot translates to false. And now we actually need these four constraints to put it inside of our view. And first we need to actually add it to container view, add subview, send button like so. And here's what we are going to do. First, the x-axis is actually pinned to the right of this container view guy. So in other words, it's on the right of this red bar. So we will say send button dot right anchor constraint. So constrain to the container view's right anchor. So pretty straightforward. Let me get rid of the project navigator, send button. So what is the y-axis? Well, the y-axis is actually just going to be center y anchor dot constrain to container views center y anchor. So just place it directly in the middle of this red bar area. And what is the width anchor? So width anchor will constrain to a constant of, let's use a 80 pixels constant, and send button dot height anchor will be constrained to the container view's entire height anchor, making it as tall as this red bar. So finally, if I just steal the active equals true from up there and paste it down here, paste, and paste, we're going to get the button to be placed on the right side of this red bar. So running this application now, we get this, that, and we get the send button on the right. So notice how if I click on this send button, we don't have a down state or highlighted state for the actual button. And the easiest way to fix that is to specify a, let me see if I can get this in here. We'll specify type, and type will be system. And running this, we'll get a nice down state for our button. Pretty easy stuff. Hope you guys use this to make your buttons more interactive. So click there. We also get this blue highlight as well. So that is what we get for our button. All right, now let's actually implement this input text field over here by creating a text field. Let's see, let's call it input text field instead. It makes it a little clearer what it is. So this will be a UI text field like so. Input text field dot placeholder text. We'll say enter message for that white grayed out text right there. And while we're at it, let's set translates to false. Here we go. Now we need these X, Y, Z, see add subview for the container view, input text field. We need these X, Y, WH constraints. So let's see, where does it need to be in terms of the x-axis right there? Well, in terms of the x value, we will just pin it to the left of the entire view's left side. In other words, we'll say container view, let's see, not container view, input text field, left anchor, will be constrained to the, let's see, anchor of the container view's left anchor, like so. And then the y value is pretty simple. Y will be center y, constrained to container view's center y, placing it directly in the middle. And the input text field dot, what is the width? Well, this is kind of the little trickier part of this constraint. If we have the left side pinned here, we can actually get the width of this entire text field to be right there somewhere. And so let me just show you what your first initial reaction or initial instinct would be, is to constrain the width anchor to some kind of constant, perhaps value of 100, and the input text field dot height anchor will be constrained to the entire container view's height. So spanning the entire red bar's height right there. And now I will take the actives to paste down here, there and there. Now let me just run this to show you guys exactly what we have. Good old green tea. Okay, clicking on this now, we get this area down here, right? So you see how it's a little short and it's pinned really close to the left edge. So to move it a little bit over to the right side, we will use take the left anchor here, and inside of this call, we can just say constant, see there, and put an 8 value to move it 8 pixels to the right from the left. And now to make it span all the way to this button here, we can actually change this width anchor to something else. And that will be this right anchor constrained to the anchor of the send button's left anchor, like that. So let's also specify active equals true. And I'm just going to remove that constraint as well. So running this now, we will get this up here, and we get this input text field to span all the way to the right of this button. The reason why it doesn't go all the way to the button is because you have some invisible white spacing around the 80 pixel wide send button. So that's why it does that. And now we can do a couple of things here. First, we'll remove the red color of this container view. And this is kind of what I always do to lay out my components. I just put a solid color for the background and lay it out somewhere. So what is missing in this view is this little separator line at the very top. I'm going to create that right now pretty easily. Let me see how fast I can do this. So let separator separated line view equals UI view right here. Separator line view, background color is UI color. Let's just use black color. And then we'll set the translates equals to false. Container view, add subview of separator line view. Now I need to place it on the very top of that container view. So in other words, I need to place it right here. And I'll do that by first, let's see, what is this XYZ over here, or XYWH? So separator line left anchor will constrain to the container view's left anchor, placing it right on the left. The Y anchor will just be the top anchor constrained to the container view's top anchor, like so. The width, well, let's just use width anchor constrained to the entire width of the container view with the container view's width anchor. And then the height is just a value of, let's see, height anchor constrained to constant of 1, giving it a height of 1. And now if I take the active values, so active, there, and there. All right. Hope you guys are familiar with copying and pasting. That's just what I did. Nothing too difficult about that. So now we get this bar down here. If I bring it to the center, I have a rather thick bar right there.
All right, in the next episode, let's take a look at how to actually link the user to the actual message that we're trying to send. Finally, we'll take a look at how to fill out our messages controller with all of the messages that belongs to our logged in user.
I can specify 220, 220, and 220. Okay, let's see what this looks like. Why don't we? So we get our app up and running, click here, and we get this small line down here. If you want to make it even thinner than that line, you can actually specify a value of 0.5. Now I would do that, but whenever I shrink it down to this size, that line sort of disappears because the pixel is a little too thin. So I'm just gonna keep it at that height. Cool. All right, good stuff. Now that we finally have this UI ready, I want to actually start sending messages into Firebase. Now, how do I do that? Well, first, whenever I hit the send button, I need to actually trigger an action that handles this message in here. So to do that, we will go up to the send button construction area, and we can actually, let's see, go up here and say send button, add target, a value of self for target, and this selector will be pound selector, handle send like that for the control event of touch up inside. So that's what it does, and handle send will be this function that we create right here. So there we go. And if I just try to print a value of 1, 2, 3, let's just see what that does. Okay, let's go send. So we get 1, 2, 3 down here. Pretty good stuff. Now, what is it that we want to do? Well, we need to handle this message box area for whatever we type inside of this box. To do that, we need a reference to this input text field from outside of this function here. In other words, I need to access input text field from handle send. And to do that, we need a reference to this. And we will create this by doing this. So I'm going to copy this entire chunk of code, go up here, top of view.load. I will paste that in there, and I'll show you exactly how to create this. So let input text field. This will be my new reference, so UI text field. And I will just say equal this closure block. And I'm going to cut all of this and put it in there. And I can just return this input text field by executing the closure block with these two parentheses right there. Okay. So what this means is that I will rename this just to make it a little less confusing for you guys. And we just simply create this text field inside of this closure, and we return it, setting it to that input text field right there. So nothing too complicated, I hope. That's how we get this new reference here, which means that we will just delete all of that right there. You can see the Xcode ID automatically highlights this to green, meaning a class property. Cool. So in handle send now, I can actually print out input text field dot text instead. Let's see what that gives us in the console area. So running this, we get our title view and send and say hi, send, and we get that down there. Nice, nice, nice. So here is the interesting part that you guys have all been waiting for here. And how do we send this actual message into Firebase so that we can see it inside of our console here? So for example, I have this messages node right here. And then I have these messages inside of this list like this. So I think I actually need to refresh this page. It's getting stale and the data is no longer being updated. Here we go. We have our messages in here. And then we can set some properties like text and name inside of these nodes. So how do I create this entire tree? Well, let me show you by killing off the tree and plucking the entire node off and throwing it away, is what we just did. And here is the magic, the secret sauce. So let's import Firebase first, Firebase. That will give me access to create this reference right here. Let reference equals fire, database, reference. And now to create the messages node, we will say .child messages like so. And then if we just simply update reference, say update child values with some kind of dictionary is what it expects. In other words, I will create let values equal some kind of dictionary. And I'm going to set the key to text, and the input text field dot text will be the actual value for that key. So let's just do that and remove those spaces. Perhaps remove this space as well. So the reason why this is giving us an error is because we need to unwrap this optional text right here. So doing that, we'll run the application and you'll see the message showing up inside of our console here. So let's click, and let's just say hello there. Click, and then we get our message inside with the green. So if we type in 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and send again, we get that message updated to whatever that text is. ABC, 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 or ABE, and send. And that's how the messages update itself. So in order to have an application that supports many, many different messages, we need to create a list of these messages instead. So let me show you guys how to create a list inside of a child node of messages like that. And if you read the documentation, which I don't really have the time to show you guys today, you will find a bit of code that generates a child node for us. So let me just show you guys a child node by creating a new reference called childRef, and this will use the reference above, and we'll say child auto ID. So child by auto ID. And if you click here, the documentation comes up and it says auto ID generates a new child location using a unique key and returns a Firebase reference to it. This is useful when the children of a Firebase database location represents a list of items. So the last part is the key of how we want to use this. So we have a list of messages, and we're going to use this to generate a unique node, and then we'll place this values dictionary under this unique node instead. So hopefully that's not too confusing, but if some of you guys are still mystified as to what that'll do, I'm just going to run that and show you exactly what is going to happen. So I'm going to click there. So first text, I'm going to hit send, and then what that is going to do, see, send. All right, so hit that twice. Firebase is a little slow today. We just created two nodes with the text right there. So hello, how are you? Hit the send, and we get this third message down here. And that's how we generate a list of messages with a uniquely separated node of a key up here. And that's how that works. So one thing I want to show you guys before we wrap it up today is how to actually trigger the enter key to send this message right there. So you notice how nothing is happening inside of my Firebase console. And to make our lives easier, we're going to trigger the enter to actually trigger the send button right there. To do that, we will go up to our input text field, and then we need to set this text field delegate to self like that. It's going to have a compiler error there because we can't access self unless we specify lazy var, giving us access to self right there. And then finally, we need to conform to this UI text view delegate for our delegate self. UI text field delegate like so. And now the annoying error is gone. To complete this implementation, we will just say text field should return and return true for this method there. And whenever we tap the enter, we actually execute this bit of code. So I'm going to call handle send whenever I hit the enter key. So running the application now, I'm going to show you what happens inside Firebase Console when I hit the enter button. So I'm hitting enter, hit the enter, we get this down here, and we get that text message down there. And blah, 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 enter, we get a new node being entered right here. All right. And then if we actually wanted to put some more information inside of the node, we can specify a comma, perhaps a name of, let's see, brand start perhaps. Let's run that, and you'll see this node, or the new node, being populated with both text and the name key. So here, so hi there brand. Let's see if that works. Send, open up this node, we get the name of brand start and the text down there. So the question here is it smart to include the name? So is it the best thing to include the name inside of the message node? So is it smart to do this? Well, I guess I'll let you guys think about that for a little bit. All right, that about wraps it up for today. I hope you guys learned a little bit more about iOS 9 constraint anchors, how to place our UI components inside of UI views, and also how to actually send messages into Firebase and database so that we can actually use them later on when we try to observe what is going on within all of our users. And so one thing that we haven't really dealt with in our app is that whenever the keyboard shows up, the bottom area will get covered. So we'll deal with that a little bit later. And last but not least, make sure to like the video by hitting the like button down there if you enjoyed today's content. Also, hit the subscribe, really helps me out, helps out the community here as well.
All right, in the next episode, let's take a look at how to actually link the user to the actual message that we're trying to send. Finally, we'll take a look at how to fill out our messages controller with all of the messages that belongs to our logged in user. And finally, you can download the project by clicking the link on the screen. You can follow me on Twitter at Build App. And also, if you're interested in learning more about iOS development, you can click on the following 3 links on the screen to go directly to the playlist on my YouTube channel. That's about it, guys. Keep on coding, and I'll see you next time.